Neil DeGrasse Tyson has been on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast several times. And a lot of people are surprised by this because every time he's on, I would say he's a little bit rude. He interrupts Joe while he's talking. He makes condescending comments. The most recent episode with Neil deGrasse Tyson was in November 2022. And this trend of interrupting Joe while he's talking, making condescending comments and so on, continued on in the episode. I listened to the episode recently and I wanted to talk about it because I think the episode has a lot of good examples of how Joe deals with more difficult guests who are also super intelligent. And I think more importantly, it's a good example of how Joe gets the best out of these guests. So I just prepared some clips that I think demonstrate this pretty well. So let's go through them. So the first clip comes from the moment where they were talking about the early career of Neil being on the TV. And Neil says he quickly realized that he has to be pretty punchy with his comments.
Yeah.
And I said, I can't just give them my stump speech as professor of astrophysics. It has to work in their medium. And so I went home and stood in front of the mirror and had people just shout out things to me, anything in the universe, any idea, object, person, place, or thing. And I would come up with like 3 sentences that are interesting, make you smile, and be tasty enough to want to tell someone else the anatomy of a soundbite. So try it.
So he says, okay, Joe, I can do this thing. Neil says he can do this thing. And then he asks Joe to throw out a word.
The Big Bang.
Big Bang. Ooh, the birth of space-time energy and everything we know and love about this universe. It occurred 14 billion years ago, and we have no idea what happened before it. And we're still expanding, as we will forever.
And then Joe comments on it by saying that, there's been he read an article that there's been a recent new discovery of some sort that the Big Bang might actually be older than it is.
What they were taking into consideration is the possibility that the Big Bang may be incorrect and that the universe might be larger and older than we think.
So, I hesitate to ask what pages on the internet you hang out on.
And as you saw there, Neil responds in a pretty personal way. It sounds very condescending. He doesn't really comment about the article itself, but he comments on his guess that Joe hangs out in this and reads into this less reliable sources. Look at how Joe responds to this.
To ask what pages on the internet you hang out on.
It was a legit. It wasn't saying the universe is older. It's saying as more data and new information comes in, there is a distinct possibility that the Big Bang might just be it just might explain the reach of the technology and not the actual scale of the universe itself.
Okay, so the way to think about this is, and this is the
I think he does it in the best way possible. He keeps calm while standing his ground and delivering, more clarification around what he said earlier to that. And this allows Neil to come back to his usual self of making intelligent comments and good response to the article in the first place. And what you just saw there will be a running theme throughout this video. Neil commenting this personal comments and Joe keeping his calm and collected. And you can see that in this second clip as well. So they were talking about this experiment that was conducted where they were trying to see if the outer body experiences people allegedly have is real.
The test for whether you really left your body or whether you were hallucinating it is get some writing that faces the ceiling up above your body. Okay? And they've done this experiment. And if you're floating above your body, above that piece of paper, when you come back to life, you should be able to say what's written on that piece of paper. And that is yet to happen.
Joe starts questioning the practicality of the experiment. Neil, he's usually very talkative. He knows he's very articulate. But once Joe starts questioning this, it looks like he gets pretty defensive and he starts stumbling on his words, watch this.
That is yet to happen.
If you get above it.
Yeah, if you get above it. Correct. That is yet to happen. That'd be really good.
Where would that piece of paper be? Suspended?
Yeah, no, you have to put it up on a shelf or something. Yeah, you'd be able to see, put it in a way that it would be clearly.
But then the person would have to die knowing that piece of paper was there and then be brought back?
Possibly. Yeah, I mean,
so you'd have to tell them, hey, I know you're.
And from there, Joe, there's like a couple more questioning, and eventually that leads to Joe saying that it's a pretty ridiculous experiment. Then Neil suddenly takes this really personal and he gets really upset, and see what happens here.
Yeah, I mean,
so you'd have to tell them, hey, I know you're going to die.
You're going to die. If you come back, I have a piece of paper up here.
That seems
read
like
from it.
A pretty ridiculous experiment to try to
if
achieve.
You care. Wait, pause. From ridiculous experiments.
So like, hey, I know this guy's about to die, but instead of concentrating on bringing him back to life, let's write.
So you can see that Neil's voice has risen. You can see that he's super upset. There's a lot of tension here. And under pressure, you can see how Joe Rogan's voice has stayed in the same level, and his body language hasn't changed, and the way things that he speaks hasn't changed. But he does say, pause, like commenting on the fact that what Neil said is a bit out of line, right? So following this, Joe explains again why he thinks that, the whole experiment is ridiculous. And Neil responds in a pretty cool way. There's another experience to do with X-ray when they first discovered that, it was tested on people that were about to die.
Wait, pause. From ridiculous experiments.
So like, hey, I know this guy's about to die, but instead of concentrating on bringing him back to life, let's write down on a piece of paper and leave it on the shelf. But who the fuck is going to do that?
No, you know what they did?
What?
In 1895, after Wilhelm Röntgen discovers X-rays and they find out it penetrates your body and you can see bones inside your body, you know what they did?
What?
They set up X-ray machines at the bedside of dying people to see if they can see a soul leave the body.
And everybody just got cancer from the radiation.
They died from cancer? No, I thought...
Joe makes a funny comment on it, and then the whole atmosphere goes back to being relaxed again. And I think this was only possible because Joe was so relaxed and was willing to listen while standing his ground. And I think this is such a difficult skill, but he's executed this perfectly. Imagine if Joe was also heated and also getting tensed up. And the third clip is another good example of Joe standing his ground. So in the third clip, before the third clip, they were discussing use of marijuana, and basically Joe is for it and Neil is against it, and Neil is explaining why.
What I care about for the world is what is objectively true, and what's objectively true can be verified by multiple people. And if it's only true within your head, it's not useful, is all I'm saying.
And Joe hits back on it, saying that although you are the only one experiencing it, it can still be useful.
It's not useful, is all I'm saying.
How could it not be useful?
To
it's
other
useful
people.
To you.
Oh,
and
yeah.
if useful to you,
useful to other
but
people.
hold on,
Other
if it's
people.
useful to you, and then that usefulness to you actually manifests.
So, the pretty quick clip there, but as Joe gets interrupted, he just says, hold on, in like the most, to me it seems like the most, kindest way. He hasn't really taken offense to it. He's trying to say that like it's his turn to speak. You are saying, hold on, it's an order, but I feel like there's no sting in it. You're not putting anyone down. You're just saying that this is my turn to speak. And I think that's when it matters how you say things. If you said it like, hold on, like in an angry, like a raised voice, that they would have gone down a lot differently. And I think it also helps by the fact that once Joe says everything that he has to say, he immediately goes listening mode again. In the fourth and the last clip, talking about how unusual events aren't really unusual. So
One like a childhood friend.
Yeah.
And you say, small world.
Yeah.
That's your first thought, right? Small world. Okay. Here's how to cure that. Okay? Next time you're in a foreign city, go up to every single person you walk by and say, do I know you? And they'll probably say no. I mean, know you personally? They'll know you because you're a dude, but they know you personally? No. Just keep doing this. And if they say, no, I don't know you, then say, big world. Just do that. You'll do that millions of times.
Okay.
Before you meet someone who you once knew.
They were talking about that, but Joe says that, it is still strange when you bump into someone you know.
So no, it's not a small world. It's a fucking big world. And there are a lot of people in it who you don't know.
It's just very unusual when you meet someone in another country that
No. There's a
from back
point
home.
where, well, if you do the math, there are a lot of things that people say are unusual where it would be unusual if you didn't.
Neil explains it in a pretty scientific way, right? And then I'll show you the clip, but Joe basically says the same thing, basically saying like, but still, if you bump into someone, it's pretty surprising, it's pretty weird, right?
Well, if you fly to England and you don't tell anybody you're flying to England and you run into a friend from back home, that's pretty unusual.
Look how often people say that it happens.
Well, we live in a strange world now.
That's precisely my point.
In a way, he's being stubborn, but I feel like the difference is that, again, his tone hasn't changed. It's still kind, it's still respectful, while saying what he really believes. And here, I think, being a scientist myself, I am more with Neil on this one, but I do get what Joe is trying to say. And this part makes Joe seem genuine, relatable, and makes him a human, basically. And I think it also shows that he's not a yes man. If a smart person says this, statistically, this is the way. When you have a hard time digesting it, it shows that Joe brings it up. He's gonna bring it up and he's gonna ask questions, and that makes the rest of the time, the rest of the conversations, you feel that that's a genuine reaction as well, just like this time. And all that to say, I think it's about the fine line, right? When you're talking with someone, right? It's so easy to be a yes man, Yeah, okay, true, yeah, that's how it is and stuff. But I think a more deeper, meaningful conversation can be had when you truly listen to someone. And when you truly do listen to someone, I feel like you have a reaction to that. Might be that you agree with what they say, or you disagree with what they say, or you have these other questions that might challenge what the other person is trying to say. And I feel like Joe Rogan does that really well in his podcast. It's his charisma, it's his willingness to listen, and also it's his kindness and, being respectful for the guest. And I feel like that's a good lesson for all the podcasters, including me. So I hope you enjoy that video. If you liked that, please like and subscribe and comment what you think. But that's all. See ya.